Quilters are a generous bunch that will make a quilt to mark an event, to soothe an illness, to express art. We come together as a community in times of need, always looking for a reason to give a gift of warmth. Quilters are not sewers, we are creators. We are givers and even artists. We love the process, the legacy, and the accomplishment, but mostly we love the story. Every quilt has one.
Hi, my name is Judy Spencer, and I live in Soap Lake, Washington. In fact, I used to work at the Fabric Patch many years ago. I remember buying fabric from Cindy when she'd bring it to work and she'd sell it out of the trunk of her car. That was back in the old days. But the story about my quilt is, this was a quilt that my grandfather won at a raffle. It was during the Depression, the very start of the Depression, and his wife, my grandma, Finey Bell Buckles, sent him to the store with a quarter to buy beans. And I'm assuming the beans were probably 10 cents a pound. I don't know. It was supposed to be enough to last him for the week because they didn't have a lot of money. And this was in Loveland, Colorado. And so my grandfather took his quarter, went to the grocery store, and lo and behold, sitting out in front of the grocery store was two church ladies. My grandfather wasn't a church goer, but my grandma was. And they were selling raffle tickets for this quilt here. And so my grandfather bought one, and I'm assuming it was probably for 10 cents because he still had enough left to buy 2 or 3 pounds of beans to take home. So when they had the drawing, my grandfather won the quilt. So it's always been in the family. My mom was born in 1920, and she's the one that told me the story because she was about 6 years old then. So when my mother got married in 1939, they left Colorado and came to Washington State, and the quilt came along with him. Then I came along in 1948, and I remember probably when I was about 6 or 7, getting into the big metal trunk. That's where we kept all the kind of like secret stuff, I guess, when I look back about it. And there was the quilt in there. And at that point I started taking the quilt out and just laying it on my bed. We never used the quilt, but I love looking at it and touching and seeing the colors. And my mom told the story that my grandma wasn't real happy with him when he came home and had spent money on something besides the beans. So I'm not sure why they never used the quilt, if grandma was a little jealous of grandpa but for winning the quilt from the ladies at the church. But I remember laying the quilt out on the bed and my mom telling me the story about it, that the lady had done the quilt all by hand. She dyed the fabric, and on the back you'll see parts of a flour sack that they use for the backing of the quilt. And I'd take my mom's button jar and I'd unscrew it and dump it out on the quilt and go through and sort the buttons. And it was that kind of at that time, as I grew up, that I started thinking that someday I'm going to be a quilter, and I love quilting, and I still love buttons, and I have big jars of buttons all through my house. So that's the story about my Grandpa Buckles quilt.
Thank you for watching our video. We invite you to leave a comment, hit the like button, or better yet, subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. You can also visit our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or Pinterest pages, or find all of those things and our online store at fabricpatch.net.